When his wife paused and looked at him, John replied, "I understand." John thought that he had said "I understand" a lot these past days, and he was really tired of saying those words. He wondered how he and Diana, his wife, had even gotten to this point. They were married for over 22 years and had 2 wonderful children, both in college. They lived in a wonderful old house that Diana inherited from her grandmother. Together, they updated the house, adding a pool and a detached garage. The old house now had an open-concept floor plan and a beautifully updated kitchen. He was proud of the house and thought it rivaled anything they had seen on HGTV. They also had a great beach house in Hatteras, North Carolina. He resisted making any changes to the traditional beach house he inherited, preferring to leave it as he remembered it as a child. It was the site of so many wonderful family memories. John Simon Thomas was now Senior Vice President of Central Logistics and enjoying the fruits of many years of hard work. Diana Anderson. Thomas has also done well in her career. She was a senior account manager at the securities firm Richards & Son, having worked there for the past 20 years. He thought they had a perfect home, almost perfect children, a wonderful career, and a happy marriage, until he often said, "I understand." But he knew that he didn't really understand what was happening to his life. Diana fell silent and looked at him. "You understand what I'm trying to say?" "I understand." He hoped she didn't notice the mark he made on the piece of paper in front of him. He looked at the paper, 32 marks. In the past 2 days, he has said, "I understand," to his wife 32 times. It's time to end this debate. "So we've finally agreed," Diana said. "I'm going to step outside of our marriage once to experience this." She stopped when she saw John shaking his head. John looked Diana in the eye and replied, "I will never cheat on you, and I will not agree for you to cheat on me." "I never cheated on you," Diana exclaimed. John continued, "I am ready to forgive you for the deception you have committed up to this point. But now, that's all." "I've never cheated on you," Diana answered defiantly. "Yes, you cheated, at least in my opinion, and if you're honest in your thoughts, then you know it. You had lunch with him alone several times. He'd met you on bachelorettes a few times and turned those nights into actual dates. You corresponded with him extensively via text messages, especially on weekends." John paused and looked deep into her eyes, causing Diana to lower her head. "He now has an upscale room booked at the Jefferson Hotel and 2 seats for their Sunday brunch. His intentions are obvious. You have a bold new dress hidden in the back of your closet, a Victoria's Secret bag filled with new underwear. I guess it was only for his eyes since you hid it from me. Your intentions are also obvious." John stopped and waited for an answer, which never came. He continued, "I'm going to make it very simple. I'm going to make sure we both understand what's going to happen. I offer 2 options. This Saturday morning, I'm going to the beach house. I'll stop at the Virginia Diner for breakfast and then head to the beach. I'd like you to come with me. We may spend the weekend discussing our problems and wondering if we can save our marriage. It would be nice if you returned the underwear you bought for him and picked out something for us to have fun with." John paused, trying to gauge Diana's reaction. Once again, he couldn't read her mind, something he'd never had a problem with until recently. "Your other option is to continue with your plans for Saturday. Meet David Summers at the Jefferson Hotel, have a nice romantic dinner at Bookbinders, dance at the Tobacco Company, and return to the Jefferson to complete your romance." "Look at me." She slowly raised her head. "You can continue with your plans. You won't need my permission, because the moment I leave without you on Saturday morning, our marriage will end." Diana looked at John in shock. How did he know about their plans for the weekend? She slowly began to speak. Before she could say a word, John said, "In case you were wondering, I have friends where you work. You have friends at work who worry about you. And finally, David Summers has no real friends at all." Diana paused as what John told her dawned on her. Then she tried to go on the offensive. "I have been your faithful wife and partner for 22 years. "No, you were a faithful wife for 21 years and 10 months. You've been cheating on me since your first lunch with David Summers." "I never cheated on you," Diana pleads. You already had sex with him, John began to say. Diana jumped up and interrupted him. I never cheated on you. With a sadness that surprised Diana, John continued, I saw the betrayal in your eyes. Eyes that were always locked on mine when we made love. Eyes that now close, a face that turns away from my gaze in bed. How many times were you with him when we made love? John laughed sadly. We used to fantasize about a threesome with another woman or another man. I assume that you have already been able to make this fantasy come true. We've had a crowded bed for the past few months. Now I won't talk about it anymore, you understand? Diana thought that everything was not going as she had planned. She tried to gain the upper hand. John, we have a wonderful marriage. I value our relationship and your love more than anything in the world. We raised 2 wonderful children together. We have a great career, and if we stay the course, we can retire early and truly enjoy life and each other. I was faithful to you and ready to be by your side as a loving wife until the end of our days. I'll give you the rest of my days. I only need 1 day for me, and 1 night for him, was John's quick response. Diana lowered her eyes and shook her head. She looked at John. I could just go behind your back. I could have lied to you, but I wanted to be open and honest with you. I thought that after all these years you would understand. John quickly responded again. I understand. And as for lying and going behind my back, that's exactly what you've been doing in recent months. You went on dates with him under the guise of a bachelorette party. You had an intimate dinner with him, holding hands and letting his hands roam over your body, which only I should have access to. And worst of all, you brought him into our bedroom, replacing me with thoughts of him. You allowed him to interfere with our time with hundreds of messages, not to mention sexting. Diana, I know everything, and how I found out doesn't matter. What's important is that you understand what I'm talking about. You understand? Diana simply looked at him with eyes that he no longer understood. He sighed quietly, realizing that she didn't realize what she was throwing away. John stood up and left the room. He went to their bedroom, brushed his teeth, and tried to sleep, but he knew it would be difficult to sleep that night. Diana sat motionless for several minutes. Finally, she moved to the sofa, took the phone, and called her friend Janice. When Janice answered, Diana said, John knows everything. He knows about David and our plans for this weekend. Janice replied, Doesn't sound very good. Please tell me you're going to cancel this. Diana answered quietly, I don't know how I can. I promised David, and he spent so much money on this weekend. Janice quickly replied, You made promises to John before. If you don't remember, then I remember. I was your bridesmaid. Summers can cancel everything and it won't cost him a penny. Either way, that's no reason to cheat on John. I won't cheat on John, Diana repeated again. You're cheating, Janice answered. When I talked about what George and I did, I tried to make sure you understood that I would never have done it without his permission. Besides, I told you that we chose a man together and made sure it was someone we would never see again. I told you that we did everything right, but nevertheless we still have problems that we are trying to solve. You decided to sleep with a colleague and are trying to justify it. Now Janice begged, Please forget about this plan, stop dating David, get on your knees and apologize to John. Diana answered softly, But I need it. I really need to experience another man one more time in my life. David is a nice guy, and women at work say he's good in bed. A good guy wouldn't sleep with a married woman, Janice said. Think about what you're risking just to become another notch on his bedpost. I won't become another notch on his bedpost. He is attentive to me. Janice wanted to scream into the phone. Don't you understand that this is even worse? I met David at our bachelorette party. He's a nice man, but he's nowhere near what John is. You must understand this, right? I understand, Diana whispered. Janice pleaded. Please think long and carefully about your decision. This will affect all the people you love for the rest of your life. Diana said quietly. I thought you would understand. I thought that you, more than anyone else, would understand why I need to do this. Janice tried to reach her friend again. Diana, The problem is not that I don't understand. The problem isn't that John doesn't understand. The problem isn't that your kids or your parents or your friends won't understand. The problem is that you don't understand. I beg you not to do this. Deanna answered in a decisive voice. Well, John knows what I've been doing up to this point, and he didn't stop me. He won't like it, but he'll let me do it. He will understand how important this is to me. Now I need to get some sleep. After finishing the call, Janice turned to her husband, George. She didn't understand a word of what I told her. I'm so sorry I told her about our experience. George replied, I thought we agreed that this would remain strictly between us. Janice was a little confused. I needed to talk to someone about the problems we were having. I never thought that this would give her any ideas. George hugged Janice and said, I know, and I'm not angry. I must admit, I also talked to John about our problems. Janice lowered her head in obvious embarrassment. You told John, I can imagine how he reacted. Did he suggest throwing me to the curb or branding me a slut on my forehead? I thought you knew John better. He asked me a series of questions. My answers to these questions got me thinking about us. After I finished answering his questions, he told me, you two got into this together. You made this decision together. It turned out to be a big mistake, but you two did it together, and only you two can correct this mistake. As long as we continue to be together, work on our relationship together, everything will be fine. He made me realize that we were in this together, and we were both trying to solve our problems. This may be the reason why we are still married. Janice began to cry. She said quietly, this may be the reason we are married, and we may be the reason he gets divorced. George shook his head, hugging his wife. Don't blame yourself if they break up. John's right. If they don't get through this together, they don't stand a chance. Diana slipped into bed and realized that John was awake. He turned his back to her, and they both moved to opposite ends of the bed. They were separated by 2 feet, but the distance seemed to be measured in miles. They got up with their alarm clock and went about their morning routine without saying a single word to each other. After Diana left for work, John relaxed for a moment and checked the list in his hands. Today and Monday, he took time off from work. John walked through every room in the house, photographing each room and its contents. He cataloged the contents of each room and noted the items he wanted to keep. He copied all their wedding and family photos from the cloud onto a flash drive. He left their wedding album on the coffee table, not daring to open it. The apartments he looked at were nice, but he knew he would miss this house. He will keep all the wonderful memories, but he will miss being here. He will miss the woman he couldn't stop loving and the life they built here together. John went to meet Sandra Lewis, who came highly recommended to him. The settlement she offered was very simple and straightforward. Diana will get the house and her retirement plan. John will keep the beach house and his pension plan. He will pay off her car and all her credit cards. A portion of their investment accounts will be set aside for college tuition and $10,000 for each child as an endowment fund. Then they will split the remaining funds 50-50. John looked up at the settlement offer and simply nodded his head. Sandra said, "We can submit the papers on Wednesday morning." John nodded again, stood up, shook her hand, and left the office. Sandra Lewis realized that her client had said very few words to her since he hired her for his divorce. All their communication was carried out via email. She sensed sadness and resignation in him. She sometimes wondered why she chose family law as her specialty. John headed to the bank. He opened a separate account, transferring half of the old account to his new one. He emailed the direct deposit change form to his company's HR department. Later, at home, he will change his payments to his new bank account. He then went to their investment banker. He confirmed that both of their signatures would be required for all invoices and transfers. John informed him that his lawyer, Sandra Lewis, would seize the accounts the day after Diana was served. John was disgusted by the expression of pity and concern on the faces of his longtime advisors. He realized that they were just the first of many of their acquaintances who would have the same expression on their faces when the news came out. The thought of having to tell his children about the divorce almost made him sick. Diana tried to avoid David Summers at work as much as possible. At lunchtime, they met at Maria's Cafe, a small restaurant that he liked to call their place. She was quiet and refused to hold his hand. John knew about their every move. She could not shake the feeling she had all day that they were being watched. David Summers paid no attention to Diana's mood. "I'm excited about this weekend. Hotel check-in is at 3 p.m. Do you think we could meet a little earlier than planned? Maybe we could have a little fun in the room before we go out to dinner?" "I don't think so," was Diana's restrained answer. Back in the office, Diana tried to do something, but kept looking around the office. She realized that at least one, and possibly more, of her colleagues were acting as spies for John. After a couple of fruitless hours, she closed up for the day and left the office. Walking down the hallway, Diana greeted two new interns in her department. She stopped and looked back at the interns. She couldn't help but notice the distinctive Central Logistics logo on the hoodie one of them was wearing. John completed all the tasks on his list. It was 2 p.m. and he realized he hadn't eaten all day, so he decided to grab a snack. When he sat down at a table in Maria's Cafe, the hostess came out and greeted him with a hug. John hugged her tightly and asked, "How is Ben doing?" Maria smiled. "He's doing great. He made the baseball team as a rookie. He's so excited. You know, James has been a great training partner this winter. Your son changed everything." "Well, James is thrilled that his roommate will be on his team," John replied. Mary sat down next to John and said, "They were here again for lunch today, but all was not well in paradise." Diana was very nervous, and, of course, Summers did not understand anything. "He may be clueless, but he's going to sleep with her this weekend," replied a dejected John. "Don't rush to give it up. She must be a special woman to have been married for so long. She realizes her mistake, and I just pray that it happens sooner rather than later," Maria replied. "So, Maryland crab cakes with broccoli?" John smiled for the first time that day. "Sounds perfect, and maybe a beer for a change. Surprise me with one of your pale ales." Diana returned home early and began to put her backup plan into action. She planned to cook John's favorite dinner and then try to talk to him again. It was important to her that he agreed to her one-time date. If she doesn't agree to it, she needs him to at least accept her actions. When the crab cakes were baked, she went upstairs and changed. She wanted to look good for him and then planned to meet Janice and her other friend Lisa for drinks and to discuss the big day one last time on Saturday. She took Victoria's Secret clothes and bags out of her closet and walked to her car, carefully placing them in the trunk of her car. She didn't want to embarrass either John or herself by exposing them to him. John arrived home at his usual time and was surprised to smell the smell of dinner being prepared. Diana entered the living room and handed him a bottle of light beer. "Please take off your jacket and tie and sit down. Dinner will be on the table in a couple of minutes." John smiled at the Maryland crab cakes and steamed broccoli she brought him. He was glad, because this was his favorite dish, but for the first time he realized that he would prefer to eat at Maria's Cafe. At this moment, he would prefer to be anywhere but at home. As they ate dinner in silence, Diana decided to try again to make him understand why she needed to do this. "John, I love you and I pray that you understand why—" John interrupted her. "I understand. You look very good today. Are you going somewhere?" "Yes, I'm going to meet Janice and Lisa for a few drinks later in the evening. But I'm trying to tell you that I love you and hope for you." Yes, you hope that I understand," John said coldly. "I really understand." He stopped eating and moved away from the table. Getting up, he said, "I lost my appetite." As he left, he told her, "You look really good for him. I guess you couldn't wait until tomorrow. When you see David Summers tonight, tell him to drop dead for me." John disappeared into the living room, and the sound of the television filled the dining room. Diana sat quietly at the table with her head in her hands. For the first time, she seriously reconsidered her actions. After a few minutes, she stood up and cleared the table. Now was not the time to hesitate. She needed to remain true to her feelings. She wrote to Janice, "Can we meet earlier? I'm leaving in 5 minutes." John heard the front door open and close. He drank his beer and looked at the TV. He realized that he had been sitting there for 20 minutes and had no idea what channel he was watching. He felt sadness pressing on his chest like a huge weight that made it almost impossible for him to breathe. John pulled the box out of his coat pocket. He popped 2 pills into his mouth and washed them down with the rest of his beer. For the first time in his life, he took sleeping pills. He knew he wouldn't be able to sleep without help. He also knew that he would need all his strength for Saturday morning. Diana was the first to go to the bar and order a table for 3. While waiting, she turned her attention to the scene in the bar. Men and women danced a dance of seduction, but to Diana, it seemed like a dance of despair and loneliness. Is this really her destiny? The appearance of friends saved me from these thoughts. Diana watched as her 2 friends approached the table. She noticed that they seemed tense and prepared for their attack. Lisa sat down and looked at Diana. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Are you crazy? Are you going to cheat on your husband with some piece of crap from work? Are you going through menopause? Or have you started taking drugs? Or have you fallen and hit your head?" This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard from anyone. And I used to think, you were one of the smartest people I know. If you go through with it, you must be the dumbest bitch I've ever met. Diana simply answered her friend, "Good evening to you too, Lisa. Yes, I'm fine. But what about you?" Lisa just looked at her. Diana saw the anger and pain in her eyes. Diana turned to Janice. "Your turn." Janice shook her head. "You know how I feel about this adventure of yours. I would say more, but I'm afraid I won't be able to be as polite as Lisa." Diana smiled sadly. "You think you could swear better than Lisa?" Janice answered without smiling. "Well, no one can swear better than Lisa, but she left out the words bitch, fallen woman, cheater, adulterer, idiot, and perhaps the worst disappointment of all. But there's one thing I really need to tell you. I think you are planning to make the biggest mistake of your life, but I love you and will be here to help you no matter what you do." Lisa just shook her head. Damn. What you want to do is so wrong and so stupid, but I will be here for you too. Just so you know, I'll be saying I told you so over and over again." Diana hugged her friends. "Thank you for your love. I know you can't support what I do, but it's great to know that I can count on you both after this. You both know that I don't do anything halfway. I have made a commitment, and it is time for me to bring this matter to its natural conclusion." Lisa softly pleaded, "Diana, there is nothing natural about betrayal, and commitment to betrayal is the opposite of the true meaning of the word commitment." Diana sat quietly for several minutes and then stood up and said, "I need to finish my business for tomorrow. I'll bring a bottle of wine. Please stay and drink for me." Diana completed her instructions and drove up to the dark house. She collected her thoughts and then sent Janice a long text message. She knew that Janice was angry with her, but she also knew that her friend would help her. She opened the trunk of her car. She realized she couldn't leave her shopping in the car overnight. Tomorrow it would be too cold to wear. She hid them in the closet in the downstairs hallway. After that, she slid into bed next to John and tried to sleep. That night, sleep did not come to Diana. Finally, at 3 a.m., she got out of bed and went downstairs. She saw the wedding album on the coffee table and thought that if John could look at their wedding album, so could she. After looking through 2 pages, she closed the album and began to cry. She had to make him understand. At 5 a.m., she gave up on the idea of sleep and went to the bathroom to take a shower. After her shower, she put on some VS lingerie and then opened her clothes bag and put on the pretty item that was in it. She pulled out the suitcase she had packed earlier and carried it to the car. She then placed the Victoria's Secret bag next to her suitcase. She walked into the kitchen and wrote a short note to John. She chuckled to herself. She was leaving him a letter from Dear John. She placed the note on the coffee maker, turned off the light, and walked to the car, determined to finish what she started. John woke up and looked at the alarm clock. It was 6:15, and when he turned around, he realized that he was sleeping alone. The thought occurred to him that she had not waited for this evening. He pushed her towards David Summers. He imagined that she was lying in David Summers's bed, and this picture struck him to the core. For the first time, he overestimated himself. Should he have just let her have one night to test another man? She promised to belong only to him after that one night. Did he really lose his life's happiness because of his ego and pride? Reflecting on his plight, John realized that he would never be able to love her again if she went to David Summers. He could live with her putting her children first, because that's what a mother should do, but he could never live with her putting another man before her husband. Over the course of 22 years, they both earned each other's respect and loyalty. She expected nothing less. He wouldn't accept anything less. He hoped she was home. Maybe she was sleeping in one of the other bedrooms. John checked all the bedrooms and found no sign of her returning home that night. Entering the kitchen, he saw a note on the coffee maker. He opened the letter and read the short note. "Please understand," was all she wrote. John fell back into one of the kitchen chairs and began to cry. He was afraid of this, but deep down in his soul, he still expected that she would stay, forget this crazy idea, and remain his wife. Having prepared the coffee, he went upstairs. He quickly showered and dressed, then filled a duffel bag with some clothes and went downstairs. John filled his thermos with coffee and headed to the front door. Taking one last long look at the house that was his home, he turned off the light and closed the door. The cold morning air hit his face as he walked down the steps. He had forgotten to start the car, but he thought the cold would help him wake up and perhaps snap him out of whatever daze he was feeling. As he walked to his car, he realized that the engine was running. He opened the back door, and as he was putting his bag inside, he saw a suitcase and a Victoria's Secret bag in the back seat. In the passenger seat, he saw Diana sleeping in the car. He quietly closed the back door and paused, reaching for the door handle. He cried tears of joy at the sight of his wife, his love. Now he knew they had a chance. John took a deep breath and opened the car door. As he got into the car, Diana stirred and looked at John. "Good morning," she whispered quietly, rubbing her eyes. "Good morning." After a short pause, he asked, "How long have you been here?" Diana looked at her watch and replied, "About 2 hours. I couldn't sleep, and then I was worried that you would leave without me, so I decided to wait in the car. I gassed up the car and bought us a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts for the road." John opened the box of donuts and said, "There are only 7 donuts here." Diana finally woke up and answered, "There were a dozen between us, and I've already eaten my share." Smiling, John grabbed one of the donuts and let it melt in his mouth. "This will tide me over until we have breakfast at Virginia's diner. What do you think of their country ham and cookies and cream?" Diana shook her head. "I'm not dressed to go to Virginia's diner." John was confused. "Diana, there is no dress code at the Virginia diner. You can wear whatever you want there." Diana smiled. "I know that you can wear almost anything, but you can't not wear almost anything." After she finished speaking, she opened her coat to show John a purple lingerie set. "Well, it's almost nothing," John agreed. "Is the coat new?" Diana replied, "Yes, I exchanged my dress for this magnificent coat. In case you didn't check out the Victoria's Secret bag, I returned those other lingerie items and bought these items especially for you." Diana put her hand on his chin and lifted his head so that he looked into her eyes. "This outfit and the body underneath are meant for your eyes and your eyes only, for all the days and nights of our lives." After a short pause, she continued, "I'm sorry for the hell I've put you through these past months. You were right about almost everything. There were only 2 things you were wrong about. Last night I got dressed for you and no one else, and I actually met Janice and Lisa. The second thing you were wrong about was that, when we had sex, I had sex with David. David never came into our bedroom. I didn't close my eyes to think about him, but I couldn't look you in the eyes because I was so ashamed of what I wanted to do. I'm ashamed to admit that the shame I felt didn't stop me from planning to be with him." She looked at him and said quietly, "Now I really understand." He kissed her. They had a lot to talk about. They had a lot of work ahead of them to repair their marriage, but his heart leapt with joy when he realized that she finally understood. As John drove past the Virginia diner, he looked at Diana. She fell asleep again soon after they reached the highway. He remembered everything he did on Friday. They had a lot to talk about, and he knew that any honest conversation had to include his confession. John remembered that evening 7 years ago. He was in San Francisco for the quarterly corporate meeting. At that time, he was the head of the department, and his adventure brought huge results to the company. Foreign companies were buying up their American competitors, but John saw an interesting opportunity. He advocated the idea of buying an Italian company with excellent engineers but serious financial problems. His mentor, the CEO, approved the purchase, and it was a great success. The purchase brought them several teams of experienced engineers. The big plus was the access to the European market that this company provided to the rest of the corporation, and the strong presence of the Italian company in the Chinese market. The deal ultimately brought in billions of dollars. This was the crowning achievement of the CEO's career and set John on the fast track to a corporate career. That evening, Diana was home in Virginia with the boys at a school band concert, so John celebrated his success with his colleagues and especially with Debbie Maris, a wonderful marketing representative from another division. Debbie and he had a long-term business relationship of the friendly flirtation type. He drank just enough to ease his inhibitions, but not enough to lower his libido. They danced much closer than a married man should with someone other than his wife. They headed to her room. They kissed in the elevator. She started taking off her blouse. The elevator door opened and they quickly walked up to her room. He watched as she unzipped her skirt and, standing naked in the open doorway, reached for his hand. But John couldn't move. He realized that it was physically impossible for him to enter this room. The excitement is gone. For the first time in Hooers, he thought about his wife and the wonderful family he had at home. He looked at the beautiful Debbie Maris and could not think of a single reason to enter the room. He took 2 steps back and then ran. Literally ran. Back to the elevator. He went into his room and took a shower, wanting to get rid of Debbie's smell. It was 1 in the morning in their house in Richmond, but he called Diana. He needed to hear her voice. After several rings, she sleepily picked up the phone. John assured Diana that he was fine and nothing bad had happened, and then told her the good news. He told her about the success of his adventure and his promotion with a huge increase in salary. He cried as she excitedly told him how proud she was of him and how she always knew he would succeed. She told him how much she loved him. Through his tears, he realized that he had almost shared one of the greatest moments of his life with the wrong woman. Diana's opinion and happiness were all that mattered to him. When John drove to the beach, he knew he had to tell her. He had to make her understand why he truly understood her feelings. He was in her shoes, and that is why he could listen to her and honestly say, "I understand." David Summers sat alone in Fred Davis's office at Richards & Sons. Fred was the vice president of human resources, and David was sent to his office as soon as he walked in that Monday morning. He didn't understand why he was here. Okay, he'd recently missed a couple of deadlines in his pursuit of Diana, but he felt like he could catch up quickly. The meeting confused his plans for this morning. He needed to talk to Diana about what happened over the weekend. Not only did she set him up, but she also sent 2 of her friends, Janice and Lisa, to tell him about it. David remembered how afraid he was of this woman, Lisa. His father served in the Navy for 25 years, but he couldn't hold a candle to the way this woman could swear. She embarrassed him right there in the lobby of the Jefferson Hotel. He recalled that even the hotel security seemed afraid to interfere. As he turned to return to his seat, he froze when he saw the photograph on Fred Davis's desk. It was a family portrait of Fred, his 3 sons, and his smiling wife. Now he knew the name of the woman who had scolded him so thoroughly, Lisa Davis. Now he understood why he was here. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one. Second story. Don't burn bridges, Sin. Too old, I'm Jake. I didn't even suspect that I was on a bridge, although I had heard that such structures have a tendency to spontaneously ignite. But why? I always enjoy a good campfire. He seemed somewhat confused. Obviously, he assumed that this conversation would go differently. "I'm just saying it might not be good for us," he said. "Well, I'm not sure what drugs you were taking, but I'm afraid the bridge has already fallen into hell," I said. Lord, Cynthia, why are you always so tough on everything? "Oh, that's not true," I assured him. "There are just some little things I'm worried about. Things like no sexually transmitted diseases, stupid little things, I know. There's also the matter of stabbing me in the back, disloyalty, having sex with someone else and the like." "For God's sake, we used condoms." "That's what you say. Of course, you've lied so many times in the last 3 weeks that it's a little hard for me to trust you to be truthful about anything." "It's true," he insisted. "Well, that's very tactful of you," I praised. "Perhaps remember that there are a couple of other little things. Rice and Shay." "What about them?" "Well, I know you hardly ever see them, but somehow I believe our kids will think it's weird that you don't live here anymore." "What?" "I'm not going anywhere," he protested. "Keep believing in it," I advised him. "Sin, just think about it." "Think about what?" "Well, look at you," he began. "Do you really think that you will have any problems finding partners?" "I thought I had a partner," I said. "I was obviously mistaken." "No, that's not true. God, Sin, this is just damn. A lot of people play on the side, It doesn't hurt anyone, it just is what it is." "This may well be true. Ask me if I care what many people do." He snorted bitterly. "Not necessary. You never cared what others thought." "This is true. So when are you thinking of moving out?" "This is not for me. I own this house just like you." "Yes, but I will be the guardian, since you really communicate very little with girls, and I think they'll still want to live with me, right?" "The courts appear to favor the custodial parent in these matters. Just mentioned it." "No doubt, but it shouldn't be like this," he complained. "Sin, we cannot break off our marriage. We can be happy. Just leave it open." "No, we won't do a damn thing like that. You can do whatever you want after a divorce." "What did you think would happen when you got caught, Jake? Did you just think you'd hit me with this open marriage proposal, and I'd calmly accept? You had sex with her for 3 weeks, Jake, and you lied to me." He looked embarrassed, and that was appropriate. "I didn't think I would get caught." "It doesn't happen that way. Did you somehow imagine that you were so much smarter than me that you could get away with this? Trust me, prisons are full of people who thought they were too smart to get caught. You, of course, know more about this than I do." "Yes, I am. I have a lot of clients just like you." "You have a bunch of scumbags as clients?" he accused. "Yes, as I said, just like you." I was exhausted. Not so much physically, but emotionally and mentally. "We're done, Jake. However, think about it. It will be much better for you. Now you can have sex with whoever you want, whenever you want, without any problems." 15 years, done, just like that?" he asked. "This was done 3 weeks ago," I said. "I just got all my ducks together. I love ducks, and you, especially the little ones, so cute and fluffy." He stared at me with his mouth open. He looked like a fool. How did I not notice this before? Apparently, he did not share my admiration for aquatic birds. "I'm going to take a long bubble bath," I told him. "Try not to bother me by making me look at you, or talk, or breathe next to you." "Where are the girls?" "They are with my parents," I told him. "They don't want you to bother them either." "What did you tell them? What have you done, Sin?" "I told them you're an idiot." "They agree." He groaned in frustration. "What do you imagine will happen, Sin?" "I said I was busy," I reminded him. I went to my bathroom and locked the door before turning on the bath. I looked through my bath bombs. I had one of those golden eggs from Lush. This was what we needed. The aroma of honey and toffee surrounded me. Nice. I undressed, critically examining myself in the mirror. Steam began to rise from the water, which caused irritation. I laughed. I guess I was just so hot. I really worked my little ass to stay in shape. I spent more hours at the gym than I even care to think about, taking care of my skin and hair. At 39, I didn't look much different than I did at 29 or 19 for that matter. There are more of me, but in moderation. It was muscle, not flab. Lotto's album 777 started playing, which got me excited, and I relaxed in the luxury of my bath. My phone rang, and it was Shay. The worried but smiling faces of my children looked at me. "Are you okay, Mom?" I turned to my feet, sticking out of the bubbles, then back. "Yes. Are my children okay?" "Sort of. Yes," she answered. "How did everything go?" "About as you imagine. It was unpleasant and stressful, but I'm okay. As long as you're okay, I'm okay." The bubble buff makes me feel better. I sent them an emoji with 3 hearts. She sent me 2 huge emojis. "Are you taking us tomorrow for lunch?" "Undoubtedly. I love my girls, honey." I relaxed until the water cooled for the 3rd time, dried myself, and went to get dressed. I had a new dress. It fit me like a glove, and I loved it. I packed my small bag, just in case. I went all out with my makeup and hair, put on my heels, grabbed my black clutch, and was ready. As I walked down the stairs, Jake looked up from some game he was playing, did a double take, and stared at me. "Where are you going, Cynthia?" "Out," I said. Mo Taxi was there. The taxi driver dropped me off at Dare2. I told them my name, and the guy took me to the bar. I ordered a mojito and sipped it, lazily dipping mint leaves into it. "Hello, son." That voice behind me, deep bass, making me tremble, as it always has since his voice changed when we were teenagers. "Hello, Quinlan." I offered him my cheek, and he kissed me. "Are you ready for a great dinner?" He extended his hand. My hand was swallowed up by this huge paw. The guy led us to our table, and we ordered. "How did everything go?" I laughed. "You are very similar to my daughters. This is exactly what they asked." He laughed. "Well, besides the fact that they're small and cute and I'm big and ugly, I think we could be twins. Like triplets." I smiled. "Trust me, Q. No one thinks you're ugly but you." It was true. He was hot as hell, but he never realized it. He was always completely in the dark. He was always surprised when some gorgeous women agreed to go on a date with him. Every woman who saw him admired him, but he didn't understand it. I took a deep breath. "It's over, Q. No chance?" "No." He doesn't even feel remorse. He was talking some nonsense like, "We should open our marriage." By this point, I was no longer listening to Jake. He's always been damn shallow, Q. I've known this for years, but I always thought he was committed to me. While this was happening, I was the same. I liked him, he was good in bed and was never rude. I loved him, fell in love with him when I was a child, and then I was just as superficial as he was. He just never grew up. Well, I have matured. He patted my hand. "I understand. It's like he's still a star high school quarterback. He will never become a serious adult. Although I never thought that he would cheat." I shook my head. "Yes, it turns out I wasted many years. Our dinner arrived and we were engrossed for a while, just cozy, chatting with my best friend. We talked about work, girls, his parents. We shared dessert and got another cocktail. I took a sip of the strengthening drink, took a deep breath, and gathered my courage. "Q, do you love me?" He choked slightly on his drink, and I had to laugh. "What kind of question is this? You know it's true. I've always loved you." "Yes, I really do. I've always loved you too. However, I need to ask you some personal questions. Do you think I'm beautiful, attractive, sexy, sweet, funny, honest?" He was starting to look like a deer in headlights, and it was hilarious. I wanted to laugh, but I tried to be serious. "God, Sin, what's happening? You don't need me to tell you that kind of nonsense. You are the hottest woman I have ever met, even seen. You are the complete package. You have everyone who knows you wrapped around your little finger." I laughed bitterly. "Yes, except for Jake." "He's an idiot," Q said. I laughed until I cried. "That's exactly what I told him," I breathed. He grinned, his eyes sparkling. "Yes, everyone except him. I was going to push Quinlan. I've never done this, but I was going to do it now. He was a confirmed bachelor. He constantly went on dates, always holding some gorgeous girl on his arm. He had a luxurious penthouse in Westchester, drove a Lamborghini and wore impeccable clothes. He owned his own company and lived the way he lived. Despite all this, he was the most down-to-earth guy I knew. He was comfortable, but I was going to push him off the cliff. Q, we've been best friends practically our entire lives, right? He nodded. You are my only friend whom I have known for more than 10 years. I don't really keep in touch with the old gang except for you and Jake. Me too. They were a bunch of assholes. He laughed. It seems. I took both his hands in mine. Have you ever thought that we could be more than friends? He was close to panic. I saw it in his eyes. What do you want to say, Sin? I have feelings for you, I said. This has always been the case. I mean, something more friendly feelings. I suppressed them the whole time I knew you because I was with Jake. I pushed them away, refusing to even acknowledge them. I don't, cheater, Quinlan. My marriage is over. It was all over. The second I found out what Jake had done. I'm letting you know. I'm coming for you. He just sat there, too stunned to speak. I knew what was going on in his head. I just threw a grenade into his carefully ordered world. He was comfortable. Everything was the way he wanted, and now it all turned into chaos. Sin. Lord, you are like my support. You have always been like this. I'm not going to do anything that you might not like. I can't risk it. But what if you find out that you hate me? I laughed. I'm sure, Q, trust me. Look at me and tell me you've never thought about this. Look into my eyes. He did so for about 2 seconds. I reached out and cupped his cheek, forcing him to meet my gaze. Tell me. I can't, he said. Every day of my life, since the day you hit me in the face with that ball in gym class, I thought about what it would be like. This drove me crazy. God, I loved this guy. His sense of humor was the same as mine. I remembered that day very well. My father worked for the Securities and Exchange Commission and was transferred to a new office. We moved to Philadelphia, and it was my first day at this school. I had 2 balls in my hand, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw this huge guy creeping up to my left. He threw the ball, and I blocked it with what was in my left hand. He threw it so hard that he knocked the ball out of my hands, and I released another. I was a softball pitcher, and the ball came flying and hit him square in the face. I remembered the past. Any other boy would probably be embarrassed and angry, but not Quinlan. He just laughed. Wow, you have a great hand, he said. He smiled with all his charm, walked over to the bench, and sat down. I came out after about a minute, walked over and sat down next to him. Sorry, I said. I didn't mean to hit you in the face. I'm Cynthia. Everything is fine, he said. You are the best player on this team. I'm Quinlan. My friends call me Q. You can call me Q. That's all. We were friends, and that never changed. That was about to change. We'll be friends, but it has to be more than that. He just didn't know it yet. Do you think you'd like to find out? I asked. Well, yes, but his voice faded. But? I don't know, Sin. Is this some kind of getting revenge on Jake thing? I knew you would say this. No, Q. Believe me when I tell you this, Jake is gone. He disgusts me. Once I lose respect for a guy, everything he does makes me dislike him. I have no feelings for him, not even anger or hatred. He is who he is, and I feel only indifference and disgust. The first week, yes, there was anger, but I'm not going to dwell on it and let it get me down. I don't understand. I know you won't understand this, but I am who I am, Quinlan. You saw me incredibly furious, incredibly disappointed. How long did it last? He grinned. Not for long. I think you have these incredibly hot, burning times. I've never seen anyone be as furious as you or cry as hard as you. But when you finish, it's over. See, you really know me. Tell me, how do you feel about asking me to dance? What about girls? Don't you need to go back? They are with Mom and Dad. I'll pick them up for lunch tomorrow. Want to go with me? They would be happy to chat with you. He looked at me a little strangely. Okay, where do you want to go? Somewhere where you can be yourself. He laughed. I heard about a new place. I know the owner. You know everyone, with a smile. He grinned. Well, I don't know the mayor or the chief of police, but I know a lot of very useful people. Well, take me away from here. He was a great dancer, I knew. God knows we've danced together many times. He wasn't as good as me, but those ballet lessons that I insisted my mom take me to didn't exist when he was a child. I know all the classical dances, and I'm damn good at shuffle dancing. I was constantly impressing the girls, and Q was always impressed too. They played a mixture of pop and EDM, and I made Q work through both sets. He was busting ass after EDM, and I took pity on him and took him to the bar and then back to the booth. He acted as if he was going to sit on the opposite side, but I sat him next to me. "Do I have bad breath?" I asked. He laughed. "No, but I know you. You are. You're in a predatory mood, and I'm afraid you might eat me." I looked at him thoughtfully. "I can. Are you going to fight back really hard?" His arm wrapped around me, pulling me into his warmth, and I felt small and protected. I love this feeling. I haven't had this for a long time. Fight? No, Sin. I can never fight you. We always had something. I think we both always knew it, but we never talked about it like that. "I know," I whispered. "I couldn't, Quinlan. I know, honey. It was never a big secret, but we always avoided it, remained friends, and did what we had to do. I've always respected you very much. You stayed in your lane, stayed true to yourself. It's the same for you, although it always made me damn jealous, seeing you with those gorgeous companions." "I couldn't have had a more gorgeous companion," he grinned at me. I consoled myself. I slapped him on the side and pressed myself against him. When I looked up, these piercing blue eyes were looking straight into them. "You can take me now," I whispered again. "Really, Sin? Are you sure? Won't you hate yourself and me in the morning?" "I'm not going to hate myself. I might hate you, if it's just for tonight." He stood up and extended his hand. "You'll never get rid of me." I took his hand and he pulled me to my feet, trying to lead me away. "Q, wait, my bag." He laughed and let me take it. Then we walked out, his massive arm on my shoulders and mine on his waist. I visited him hundreds of times. It never ceased to impress me. This man had impeccable taste. "What kind of music do you like?" "Jazz, old jazz." He laughed. "Quite specific, huh? I'll see what I have." What he had was Sarah Vaughan, and when I heard Forever, I started to melt. We were dancing and he lifted my face. I could tell he was going to kiss me, and I wanted that more than anything. We kissed hundreds, maybe thousands of times, but there was always this unspoken wall between us. It was different now. It was a kiss. It was dreamy, sensual, exciting, and lasted for what seemed like hours. It's a good thing he held me because I could have turned into a puddle right there in his living room. He lifted me easily and spun me around twice before gently setting me on my feet. "Bedroom," I whispered in his ear, running my tongue along his earlobe. He picked me up again and carried me. Wait, my bag?" I squealed. He laughed. "What's with you and this bag?" He leaned down and pulled the bag off the couch with one finger, holding me in his arms like a child. He sat me down at the foot of his bed. I liked his bedroom. He had a huge round bed surrounded by thin white curtains. The outer wall was glass and provided a magnificent view of the city. Very romantic. I walked over to him, working on the buttons of his shirt. Unzip my zipper. His fingers found the small string hanging from my zipper, and he loosened it, his hand sliding under my dress, sliding the zipper down, running down my back, down my spine, and sending chills through me, giving me goosebumps. His shirt fell to the floor, and there he was. I've seen him shirtless hundreds of times, in the pool, playing sports, and he always makes my mouth water. I fainted. We trained in the same gym, and I knew what weights he lifted. He had real muscles. I ran my hands over his smooth chest. I liked it when it was smooth. He flexed his huge pectoral muscles, making them dance under my fingers. I giggled. "You have to teach me this trick." He chuckled. I undid his belt, unzipped his pants, and let them fall around his ankles. Go to bed, I told him. I'll be right back. He laughed. I took my bag and went to the bathroom. He had a huge bathroom, a giant clawfoot bathtub, a shower that could grace a locker room full of people, and 2 vanity sinks. I quickly brushed my teeth, reached into my bag, and pulled out my special items. I had never worn them and quickly removed the tags. I undressed and clutched a lime green dress that looked like body stockings, but with fishnet. I pulled it on and made a slight twist. There wasn't much left to the imagination. It barely covered my ass, if covered is the right word. More like decorated, I thought. There were feathered gloves made from the same fishnet, and I pulled them on, slipped on a pair of 6-inch silver heels with matching ankle straps, and took another turn. My hair was straightened, curled, and styled on top of my head. I looked damn sexy. I took a deep breath, gathered my courage, and headed for the door. He lay on his back under the sheet and looked at his phone. I stood in the doorway with my hip thrust forward and my right hand on the door frame. He didn't notice me, so I cleared my throat. He looked, and his phone fell, hitting him on the chin. He winced, but his eyes didn't move. "Oh my God, Sin! You are an angel, you are a goddess! Oh my God!" This was the reaction I was hoping for, and I strutted over to the bed. He sat down, put the phone on the nightstand, and reached out to me, stood up, took my hand, raising it above our heads, and I slowly turned to him. Then again, he picked me up and gently laid me down on the cool silk sheets. "Oh my God, Cynthia, you're amazing," he whispered, pressing himself against me. I turned him over on his back, lying on top of him. I was hoping we would come to this. I kissed him, and the night was filled with passion. Our lips connected, our hands wandered. I kissed my way down his body, loving every inch. There is something inspiring about making your man feel so much pleasure by giving him your loving gift. I enjoyed every second of it. I giggled and let him pick me up. He pulled my face to his and pressed my lips together. "I will never let you out of this bed." It seemed like we kissed for another hour, and he turned me over, moving down like this. He ran his eyes over me, caressing me. It was a little awkward. "This is great," he said. "How do we remove this? Will you wear it again later?" I giggled. "Anytime you want." I moved, pulling the dress off my shoulders, over my chest, and down to my waist. He pulled it down as I lifted my ass a little so he could remove it. He set it aside reverently, and I was left naked except for long feather gloves, heels, and ankly straps. "I'll leave it at that. You look sexy in these heels." Our moans filled the entire space. Time stood still, and it seemed that it would never go any further. He slowly moved away, rolled over, lay down next to me, and pulled me towards him so that I lay on top of him, my head resting on his chest, and his massive arms enveloping me in their warmth. "Are you okay, Sin?" I nodded. "Yes. God, Quinlan. You destroyed me." He shushed me. I felt it too. It was like I couldn't get enough, like I could never have enough. "I know you in every way now, Sin. I don't think I can ever be without you." He held me, loved me, until I fell asleep, wrapped in the arms of my man. 3 times a night he would wake me, or I would wake him, and we would make sweet, slow love. Q dropped me off at home around 10:30. I needed a shower and more modest clothes for our lunch with the girls. Jake walked to the kitchen door as I entered. "Where the hell have you been?" These were his first words. "None of your business. Why are you still here?" "I live here," he said. "It's not for long. Why don't you make it easier on everyone and just leave? Do you want to argue every day? It's not enough that you're a fucking cheater. Now you have to be an asshole? I think once you calm down your tits, we can talk about this like adults." "I'm an adult, but not you," I said. "You're still a frat boy." I left him stunned and went to the shower. I wore nice jeans, a nice white silk blouse, and strappy sandals. He came in and watched me, lounging in the doorway. "When do you think we will have time to talk?" he asked. "Never. The time to talk was before you started cheating on me. Jake, it's over between us. I will never touch you, and I will never let you touch me again. I'm filing for divorce on Monday. I'm not sure when they'll serve you, but I'll be asking for our home in court without you. Girls don't want anything to do with you. I don't want anything to do with you. So what the fuck? You don't want anything to do with us either. You're never here, and when you're here, you don't pay any attention to us. Just leave, Jake, before the cops have to throw you out. Where would you like me to go? Is hell too hot to ask? He snorted. Have it your way, Cynthia. Where are you going, and when will you be back? I'm meeting the girls for lunch, and Q will be with us too. Disappear when we return. Please, Jake, just go away. I took the girls from my parents. My beautiful little mother played cards with them. The girls dropped their cards when they saw me and rushed to hug me. Mom followed them at a calmer pace. I hugged her slender figure, and she just hugged me. Her hair lightly tickled my chin. I wondered how much of her life was because of me. She was a child of her generation and never changed. She had the same face that I had all my life. Now there were gray stripes in it, but still a mother. She looked up at me, love shining in her big brown eyes. Are you okay, baby? I squeezed it. Yes. I felt a little teary just knowing and seeing how much she loved me. It's not fun, Mom, but sometimes this happens in life. I never wanted this to happen to you, she said in her soft voice. I know. I'll be okay. Dad is at home? Yes. He was watching a movie with the girls and fell asleep. She grinned. I don't think it was his favorite film. I had to laugh. I couldn't imagine anything girls liked being his movie. I'll just kiss him, I said. Here he is, in his favorite deep chair. I looked at him for a while, at this strong, calm, tall man who had loved me all my life. I inherited my height from him. Mom was a tiny creature. Everything else in me came from her. My skin was just a couple of shades lighter, but I hoped I retained my mother's grace and beauty. I leaned over and kissed my dad on the forehead. He stirred, opened his eyes, and looked at me. Hello, honey, he said. Have you come for horrors? I laughed. Right. You belong to them, Dad, just like you belonged to me. You were a terror too, he said. Still terrifying, when it comes down to it. He sat me on his lap. Was it ugly? He asked. It was ugly, I said. I'm done with this. I'm submitting my application on Monday. I hope he leaves when we get home. You want me to come over and kick his ass? I laughed. No, he will do it himself. He's always been good at this. I don't know how you held on like that, honey, he said. I want you to be happy. That's why I supported you. I never liked him. Do you like Quinlan? He glanced at me. Except that. No, it's up to you. Yes, I really like him. I always liked it. I hugged him, kissed him on the cheek, and followed the girls. Mom, will Dad be home? Shay asked. I looked at them in the mirror. My little clones, my skin, my hair, even my eyes. They were little beauties, and I hoped they would get through this without injury. I don't know. I asked him to leave. What would you like? He doesn't care about us, Rice said. Why should we care about him? Rice, I don't think it's because he doesn't care about you, I said. He just takes better care of himself. You know what I mean? Yes. I think you're right, she said. We don't want him around anymore, Mom. We were talking about it. He treated you terribly. We won't forget about this. Give him a chance to stay in your life, please. I know he's not a very good father, but maybe someday he'll regret that the two most amazing girls on the planet don't love him, and he'll try to make it up to you. If he does, then in my opinion, you should let him. They were silent. Look, Q is meeting us for lunch, I said. This caused them to squeal with delight. They worshipped Uncle Quinlan. They chatted happily until we got there. He was waiting at the door, and they jumped out and ran towards him. He hugged them as he always did, and they filled his ears with their business as I approached. He looked at me, and his eyes were sparkling blue crystals. I spread the girls and kissed him. This went on for some time. I stepped back and looked at my children. Their mouths were open, and they were speechless. As a mother, leaving your children speechless is a great victory. I had to laugh. and the more I thought about it, the funnier it became. I wiped my eyes and Q trembled silently, looking down at these two frightened faces. Rice was the first to recover. "Oh yes, really funny, Mom. Mom. Oh my God, Mom, you're kidding, right?" Shay intervened. "You and Uncle Quinlan? Oh my God." He pressed them together and I stepped forward to sandwich them between us. "Don't you like this idea?" he asked them. They had trouble finding their voices. Oh, no," Shay finally managed. "I mean, yes, it's so intoxicating that I can't stand it. I'm going to explode." Rice could hardly contain herself. "This is such a fire. You're kind of my favorite person in the world, Uncle Q. Okay, Mom is ahead, and Grandma, and Grandpa. But you're up there, I promise." "Same thing," Shay said. They pulled him towards them and kissed him on different cheeks. "We are starving," Shay said. "Let's eat and then we'll talk. Are you going to get married, Mom?" "Shay," her sister warned. She covered her mouth with her hand. "Sorry," she said. I need to go to the toilet. I'll wet myself if I don't do this." We went inside, and the girls headed to the restroom. Q and I sat down on the bench together to wait for them. His big arm wrapped around me and he pulled me towards him. "I think everything went well," he said. I had to laugh. "Yes, until they peed themselves, I would say that this is a stunning success." He chuckled, and that deep, deep sound sent a thrill through me. "Are we going to get married, Sin?" he asked. I looked at him and saw humor, love, and some anxiety in his eyes. "No, you're not the type to get married, Q. We both know that." "Well, I was never married," he said. "But then the only woman I ever thought of marrying was off limits." He didn't lie. "Well, since I'm pretty sure neither of us wants to get arrested for bigamy, and I'm still married legally speaking, so we'll just have to see if we can get used to the idea," I said. "Good plan." They returned from the restroom, and the waiter led us to our table. I walked kind of behind them, and no one at the tables we passed at least said anything about my nipples being visible. Q drove an Uber, so I made him come home with us. I was hoping Jake would leave, but I was a little nervous and needed support. He left, but left a note. "Cynthia, I know you think you're acting strong, but what you're really doing is showing your insecurities. You'll call me in a week, begging me to come back. I will do that, but there will be some changes. You might as well get over it now." I showed the note to Q. "Are you going to call him in a week?" "I'll call him before then, to find out where I can serve him with the divorce papers." He smiled. "That's exactly what I thought. Don't let anyone tell you that standing up for yourself and your girls, standing up for what you believe in, is weak, or that you don't have confidence in yourself," he said. "You are comfortable in your own skin. You are the smartest and most gorgeous woman I've ever met." I walked up to him and he pulled me into his arms. "He's an idiot," Q said. "Every other man on the planet would fight to be with you, to keep you. He'll figure it out soon enough." "Thank you," I whispered. "What are we gonna do, you and me?" asked Q. "Now listen to me," I said. "How about we just date? Watch how deeply we fall in love. Communicate effectively, respect each other, have mind-blowing sex, and if everything falls into place, then boom, we get married." He laughed. "Sounds like the girl has a plan." What are the chances of all this happening? It turned out that the plan was carried out 100%. All this happened. It took 18 months, partly to finalize the divorce, partly to convince him he couldn't live without me, and 3 days to sell the idea to the girls and our parents. I looked good in red, but for this occasion, I dressed in white. It turned out well, and the girls were even more gorgeous, in champagne. We exchanged vows in the rose garden on a bridge over a small stream. The bridge was not on fire. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one. Third story. I returned home after a hard day at the office and didn't see my wife. "Jane," I called, going up the stairs. "I'm home." "I'll be down now, Tarzan." It was our little joke. We met at a costume party where I was dressed as Tarzan. We almost collided, and I said, "I'm sorry, You are Tarzan," she interrupted, poking me in the chest. Jane," pointing a finger at her delicious cleavage, she laughed. It turned out that her name was really Jane, and from then on we were Tarzan and Jane. We had been married for what I thought were 5 happy years, and I opened a beer, sat on the couch, and turned on the 6 o'clock news. The headlines ended as Jane walked down the stairs. My eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She was wearing my favorite LBD. It hit mid-thigh, and while the cleavage may not have been red carpet worthy, it wasn't skimpy. I knew she was completely backless, which meant she wasn't wearing a bra, although the movement of her breasts still gave it away. She was also wearing the necklace I had given her for our anniversary just a month ago. I grabbed my phone to capture this vision for posterity, even though I didn't know what I would actually need it for. Wow, I didn't know we were dating. Let me freshen up a little and change my clothes. By the way, where are we going? We're not going anywhere. Robert Cohen invited me to dinner and dancing tonight. I'll probably be late, so don't wait for me. Rob Cohen, who was banned from all company parties after he hooked up with too many married women. He's not like that. He was just an uptight bitch with a jealous husband who caused all the trouble. Well, there is also one jealous husband here who says that I will never allow you to date him. "I don't belong to you," she said, heading towards the door. "You may not belong to me, but when we took our marriage vows, we gave ourselves to each other. It means something to me. I thought it meant something to you, too. Oh, don't be so medieval. Now is the 21st century. No one believes in this anymore. Hey, it's a pity that you didn't tell me about this earlier so that we could get a divorce and date whoever we want." "Divorce? What else?" She threw her head back with a laugh. Following her to the door, I grabbed an old friend from the closet as the Lexus pulled into the driveway. "Here comes Robert. Order yourself a pizza or something like that." She walked out the door. "Jane," I said, and when she turned around, I tore her dress off, leaving her standing there in just a tight black thong and heels. She froze for a moment, then ran back into the house. I walked toward the Lexus, tapping the Louisville bump stop on my left palm, and Cohen backed up, burning rubber, to speed away. Nodding to my neighbors who enjoyed Jane's free show, I returned to the house, returning the bat to the closet. I grabbed a fresh beer, since the first one was already warm, and sat down again, waiting for the fireworks. I didn't have to wait long before Jane came downstairs wrapped in a robe, and she was furious. I couldn't follow her ranting and raving. As Paul Simon said, I heard words I had never heard in the Bible. I just sat there until she calmed down. "What were you thinking? What were you counting on?" I asked. "I don't know. Our lives have become so routine that we never seem to have as much fun as we used to. How is it that I'm only hearing about this now? Not to mention, the last few times I tried to get you to do something different, you were always too busy, or not interested, or it was disgusting. Even if you could somehow justify cheating, why humiliate me with this attempt to publicly cuckold me? Because I didn't want to lie, I thought that if I told you, it wouldn't be cheating. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Having sex with another person without my permission is definitely cheating." "Maybe you will allow it?" she said, looking at me hopefully. "You've really lost your mind. I need to get out of here before I say or do something that one or both of us will regret." I grabbed the keys and jumped out of there before she could get out of her chair. I did what any other manly man would do in this situation. I went to my favorite bar to cry in my beer. "What's the matter, John?" Sam said, placing another bottle in front of me. "You look like you lost your best friend." "Perhaps you are not so far from the truth, Sam. When I came home this evening, Jane was dressed to the nines and told me that she was going to dinner with Robert Cohen from work, and that I couldn't wait for her. You, of course, told her no." "Of course I said it. What kind of asshole do you take me for?" I was just about to wipe the stupid grin off his face when he said, "Just messing with you, dude. So what happened next?" Oh, she told me all the usual nonsense about how I didn't own her, how loyalty was medieval. I take it you didn't buy it? Ding, 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 ding. I received this in one copy. Right at that moment, the idiot pulled into the driveway, and Jane headed for the door. "What are you saying? What did you do?" I grabbed a persuasion tool from the closet, followed her and tore off her dress right on the street. She froze it for a minute, then realized that all the neighbors could see her in just a thong, and ran back into the house. I went to the car with my persuader waiting in Louisville, and he took off. Looks like this is a win for you. So, what brings you to my humble establishment? The victory was short-lived. I was sipping my beer when she came downstairs, pouting like a bear. When she calmed down a little, she started talking nonsense again. Our sex life was routine. It wouldn't be cheating if she didn't do it behind my back if I gave her permission. Sam was speechless. That's when I had to get out of there, and here I am. Sam opened a couple more cold bottles, we clinked glasses and drank. I had another drink before deciding that I had better stop rather than risk getting into an accident. Good night and good luck, John. Thanks, Sam. I think I'll need this. When I returned home, Jane was already in bed. I completed my evening routine, pulled on my pajama pants, and got into bed with my back to Jane. As I fell asleep, I thought I heard her quiet sobs, but I ignored them. When I came downstairs, Jane was already up and preparing breakfast. Breakfast passed quietly until we finished cleaning and Jane started again. "John, why don't you see that times have changed? No one expects to be with just one person their entire life." "Well, I don't think I'm alone. As for being with one person your whole life, neither of us were virgins. We dated others." "You know that's not what I mean. We were still just children then. We barely understood what was going where. Now we have more experience, more opportunities for comparison. I don't need to compare anything. I compared a lot before I asked you to marry me, and I asked you because I knew you were the one I wanted to spend my life with. When you said yes, you said you felt the same way. Did you lie?" "No, but what? Have you changed your mind? If so, then maybe we should get a divorce." "I don't want a divorce." "Well, you can't have it both ways. If you don't want a divorce, then you will have to forget this stupidity." Lowering her eyes, she said, "I don't want a divorce." "So it's decided," I said, although I wasn't sure about it. Although Jane claimed that she had given up the idea of another man, I found it difficult to believe her. I worried every time she arrived later than expected, especially if she didn't call back on time. I assumed that she might still want to take a lover, but this time behind my back, and began to try to test her. Oh, I didn't hire a private investigator or bug her phone or GPS her car. I just started stopping by for lunch on random days, calling her at unexpected times. I could feel the tension building between us, and I'm sure she felt it too. It even affected our lovemaking. It was less spontaneous, more cautious, without the passion that was there before all this started. Finally, I lost my mind. "Jane, I want a divorce." She was stunned. "But I thought we were okay." "Really? Do you think that everything is fine with us? That we are somewhere close to where we were before, when everything was fine with us?" She lowered her eyes and shook her head. "Telling my parents was the hardest thing. They couldn't understand why we couldn't work things out. When my father-in-law cornered me one day, I showed him a photo of her half-dressed, and he backed down. We faced a lot of questions from the family. I let the wine flow over me to spare Jane the embarrassment, but in the end, I had to show everyone the photo and tell everyone what she was trying to do. Having received the full package from her family, she came to me in search of sympathy. John, is there really nothing I can do to change your mind about divorce? I put my hand to my chin and thought. I came up with an idea that she would never agree with. Okay, Jane, I won't stop the divorce, but I will postpone it on one condition. Her mood improved significantly. Anything, John? Anything. Be careful when you say that. Anything is a lot. I'm not worried, she said. I'm sure you won't go crazy. What is this condition? I'll let you date other men as long as I can date other women. I was sure I saw her grin before she hid behind a sickly, sweet smile. Of course, John. That's fair. What a bitch. I bet she didn't think I could find another woman. There's something else, I said. What? You can't date until I make an appointment. She seemed excited. I knew she had a guy in mind and thought she was worried about what would happen if I didn't find anyone. I decided to throw her a bone. If I can't find a date in 2 weeks, you can go on your date. This brought on one of the brightest smiles I've seen from her in weeks, and she threw her arms around my neck and kissed me. That's great, John, thank you. You'll see. This will be just the thing to revitalize our marriage. Yes, it will revive him or flush him down the toilet. Within a few days, she was shocked when I told her I had a date, and suggested we go on a double date the following Friday. She probably thought I was bluffing and that she would have a date while I sat at home all alone. Without Jane's knowledge, I had arranged a date that I hoped would put an end to this nonsense once and for all. On Monday, I took a long lunch to buy new clothes and left them in the car. On Friday, I left work early so I could get my hair done and get home before Jane. I snuck into the guest room with my new clothes and was in the shower when I heard the garage door open. I shaved and brushed my teeth and went to the bedroom to finish getting ready. I think I surprised her when I came out of the guest room wearing a new outfit and a new hairstyle, but she quickly came to her senses. Robert will pick me up at 6:30. It's okay. We booked a table with Amelia for 7 chess. They're in my name in case you get there before us, I said as I walked out the door. What Jane didn't know was that we had a new employee at work, Candide DeSantis. Candide was a red-haired bombshell who made everyone red-blooded. The American man turned his head whenever she passed by. She was completely professional and never gave the office gossip anything to whisper about. We struck up a casual friendship, and when she flirted with me from time to time, I would politely show her my wedding ring. Needless to say, she was curious when I asked her to have drinks with me after work. I got to the bar before she did and was staring into my glass when she entered. So, John, what happened to break the last Boy Scout of America out of his shell? She said with a laugh. One look into my sad eyes brought her out of her teasing mood. Oh, John, I'm so sorry, she said, placing a warm hand on top of mine. I didn't mean to tease you, but you're usually so straightforward. You look like you've lost your best friend. My eyes began to water and I turned away. She put her arm around my shoulders and led me to a table, and I took my drink. She sat patiently while I gathered my courage and told her my sad story. Well, she said, there is only one thing we can do. We? Yes, we are. I'll be your date. I laughed for the first time since Jane came up with this crazy idea. Why are you laughing? I'm serious. I looked into her eyes for a few moments expecting a loud gotcha, which never came, and finally I realized that she was serious. Why? Why me? I know you don't date married men. Heck, you hardly mess with single men either. If they thought they had half a chance, every straight guy and half the gay guy in the office would be lining up to date you. I'm not just looking for a date. Like you say, I can date any guy I want. I really like you. Maybe because you don't always undress me with your eyes. Yes, I said, not always. I know you do it sometimes. You'd have to be dead to never do it. But you always treat me with respect. When we meet, you listen to my ideas, support me when other guys try to dismiss them because they come from me. More importantly, I like you, and I'm angry at your wife for treating you so disrespectfully. So, are we on a date or not? I may have been born at night, but not last night. You're in. I finished off the rest of my drink and walked Candide to her car. She gave me her number, gave me a friendly hug, and left. I thought my life would become very interesting. When I pulled up to Candide's house, I barely had time to get out and open the door before she got to the car. She was a little taller than Jane, but still shorter than me. Unlike Jane's LBD on her ill-fated date, Candide's dress was slightly longer than the knee, but tight, with a slit on the left side, almost to the thigh. It was an emerald green color, that set off her wavy, bright red hair that reached down to her mid-waist. It showed more cleavage than I'd ever seen on Jane, and Candide almost slipped when I helped her into the car. As I sat in the driver's seat, I was treated to a creamy white thigh before she straightened her dress, giving me a big smile. "We'll have plenty of time for that later," she said. I had to straighten myself out before driving, feeling awkward from her guttural laugh. As if I wasn't feeling shy enough, she started rubbing my thigh. Luckily, we arrived at the restaurant before things got too far, and I was in control as we entered the restaurant. Jane and Robert were already there. I saw Robert several times, and his appearance that evening made no more impression on me than the other times I saw him. Jane, on the other hand, lost her temper, and I can't remember ever seeing her this hot. Robert didn't get up, so I didn't extend my hand to him, but only nodded to Jane, helping Candide sit up. Jane was obviously amazed that I had such a great date. I think she was going to make some snarky remark, but changed her mind. Robert, on the other hand, couldn't take his eyes off Candide's cleavage, and Jane had to elbow him in the ribs to make sure his eyes weren't wandering. I thought dinner might be awkward, but after a hesitant start, a casual observer would have thought we were just two normal couples, rather than husband and wife with different partners. After dinner, we went to a club to drink and dance. When the dancing was fast, there were no special problems, but when the slow dance began and Candide pressed herself against me, Jane's look could kill. Jane started rubbing herself against Robert. It looked like she was trying to have sex with him on the dance floor. She was attracting attention that under normal circumstances would have embarrassed her. But she was in her own little world. When Robert's hand reached under her dress to caress her breasts, I felt embarrassed for her and took Candide back to the table. We continued to watch Jane and Robert put on a show until finally the manager came over and tapped them on the shoulder. Although I obviously couldn't hear what they were saying, they were apparently asked to leave, as Jane ran to the table in tears, grabbed her cape, and left the club, with Robert quickly following on her heels. "Well, you certainly know how to have a good time with a girl," Candide said, giggling. I could only laugh, and we went back to the dance floor. When we were ready to leave, I approached the manager. "I would like to apologize for our companions," I said. "Don't think about it, there are no complaints, sir. You see, it was my wife, or should I say soon-to-be ex-wife, and I think she was a little jealous of my date." The manager was a little puzzled, then looked Candide up and down. "I understand, sir," he said with a smile. "Please come anytime," he said, returning to his duties. I took Candide to her apartment and walked her to the door. When I leaned in to give her a friendly good-night kiss, she surprised me by pulling me towards her for a passionate kiss. "Would you like to come in for a nightcap?" she asked. Somehow I got the feeling she had more on her mind than just a nightcap, but who am I to argue? The glass was forgotten as soon as the door closed as she pushed me onto the sofa and straddled my lap. The slit on her dress opened wide, giving me a tantalizing look. She unbuttoned the top of her dress, letting it fall to her waist, revealing her firm breasts. Soon she slid to the floor and unbuttoned my trousers. She did everything painfully slowly, and I didn't know how long I could hold out. She clambered back onto the couch and snuggled up to me. I pulled away and continued kissing her. It didn't occur to me for a moment that, despite all Jane's complaints about our stale sex life, Jane had never allowed me such explicit positions. She said it was humiliating. Well, it was obvious that Candide did not share this point of view. I rolled over next to her, and she slid next to me, resting her head on my shoulder. As I lay there, a nervous thought occurred to me. Candide, in such excitement I forgot to use a condom. It's okay. I'm taking my pills." I cupped her chin with my thumb and forefinger, lifted her head and kissed her, gently sliding my tongue to meet hers. I don't know how long we had sex, but it seemed like only a few moments had passed. As we drifted into blissful sleep, I thought I didn't know where Jane had gotten the idea that our sex life was boring and routine, but if my time with Candide was any indication, it was clear that it wasn't because of me. I spent the night with Candide. We showered separately, and while she finished, I made her breakfast. "Wow," she said. "He's a great lover, and he also cooks. I can just keep you close." "About this," I said when we sat down at the table. "I really like you, and last night was absolutely the best sex I've ever had in my life. But I need to work out the problems in my marriage, and even if we get divorced, I don't know how soon I'll be ready for it." Other relationships. "Don't worry, John, I was just teasing you. Don't get me wrong, I like you too, and if things work out, I could certainly see us in a relationship. But you're right. First, you must settle things with your wife." We finished eating, just chatting about nonsense until I decided I should go home and see if anything could be salvaged from our marriage. I walked in to find Jane sitting at the kitchen table, clutching a coffee cup. She looked at me with red eyes from tears. One look at my contented face caused her to burst into tears. I took a cup of coffee and sat down opposite her. "So, how was your night with Robert?" "Oh, John, that was terrible. All I could think about was you and Candide. She is so sexy and beautiful, I know I will never be able to compete with her. You realize that you wouldn't have to worry about competition if you hadn't started this stupid thing." She couldn't meet my gaze, but she nodded in agreement. "I think I can say with confidence that you wouldn't feel so much regret if it was just you and Robert and I left sitting at home alone." She raised her eyes, filled with tears, then lowered them and nodded again. "I just don't know what to do. Part of me wants to just kick you to the curb and start over with someone new." Jane was now openly sobbing. I'm sure she was thinking about me and Candide. "Then I look at you and see the woman I married, the woman I fell in love with. What I see is not an evil bitch, but a stupid girl. And I think, I hope, that there is a way back for us." Jane looked up, hope shining through her tears. "I'm going to change my clothes and go out for a while. While I'm gone, I think you should move your things to the guest room. When I return, we will talk again. Please don't make me move, John. How can we be together again if we are apart? I need you now more than ever." "You don't understand what's the matter. It's not a fact that we will be together again. Maybe you should have thought about how much you needed me before you started this," I said before going up to our bedroom. Jane was sitting at the table when I went downstairs and headed for the door. "John," she said, and I turned around. "I love you." I simply nodded and left the house. I know it sounds cold, but I needed her to feel how shaky our marriage was. I walked down to the Charles River and walked along the shore, watching the rowers in their boats and the sailboats dancing on the water. I was sitting on a bench when I came across several families with small children. I felt sad as I wondered if I would ever see the children Jane and I were talking about. I don't know how long I sat there, but as the sun set, I began to shiver. Taking a deep breath, I rose to my feet and trudged home. When I entered the house, Jane was still sitting where I had left her. She looked at me hopefully, but I just shook my head sadly, went up to my room and locked the door. I kicked off my shoes and stretched out on the bed, fully dressed, covering my eyes with my hand. I don't know how long I lay there before I heard a soft knock on the door and a whisper, "John." I didn't answer, and after the second attempt, I heard her walk down the hallway into the guest room. After making sure she had gone to bed, I quickly took a shower and fell into a restless sleep. When I went downstairs, I found that Jane had prepared a large breakfast and, to my surprise, I had a good appetite, although Jane was just picking at her food. "John," she said, "do you think we could try seeing a psychologist?" Consulting. I went over it in my mind. I really didn't know much about counseling. Will they try to get me to agree with Jane's stupidity? If they try to do this, I can just run away. Did I want to work things out? One of the things I learned from my night with Candide was that our sex life had become boring and routine. Do I really want to go back to this? I was still angry that Jane never came to me with complaints. I decided that I had enough love in my heart for Jane for now, and I didn't want to give up without a fight. "Okay, Jane, let's try to consult." She almost jumped out of her chair. "Let's get one thing straight right now," I said. "I don't need a counselor who wants to save our marriage. Maybe he can be saved, maybe not. I will not tolerate any hidden agendas." I could tell she was disappointed. She must have been hoping for some new age hippie psychoanalyst who would agree with her times have changed philosophy, but she had no choice but to agree. The consultation was surprisingly effective. Jane had to see how her refusal to work with me actually affected her dissatisfaction with our sex life, and I realized that I needed to be more assertive. We talked more about what we wanted, what we needed, what we expected from our sex life. Although counseling helped us work through many of our issues, I was still fixated on her betrayal, even if I didn't let her complete it. For her part, Jane could not overcome her insecurities revolving around Candide. No matter how much I explained that, although I had some feelings for Candide, I was not in love with her, and our date was just a return shot, she simply did not take it. In the end, we decided to get an amicable divorce. Once the divorce was final, I took stock of my life. No, I did not immediately contact Candide. Instead, I booked a bed and breakfast on the main coast. It was precision so the weather was iffy, but it suited my mood. I just wanted to relax and do some soul-searching and decide where I wanted to go. When I returned, I called Candide. We went to dinner, and I let her take me to bed, but it was more for comfort than passion. The next morning, as we lay in bed, she said, "Penny for your thoughts, John. I was thinking about how easy it would be to just pick you up and ask you to do this forever. And the easy way is not always the best. Yes, we have a real connection." She smiled slyly at me. "Get your thoughts out of the gutter. I don't just mean sex, pervert. I really like you, and I know that I could easily fall in love with you, but I don't know if that would be fair to both of us. My divorce is still very fresh and undigested, and I'm worried it might cause a rebound. I think it would be better if we both saw others for a while, as well as each other. I don't know how long this can last, and I won't ask you to wait for me to come to my senses. I would like to argue with you, but I'm afraid you're right," she said. "Although I do think we should succeed, it's probably better to be sure than to be sorry." We got out of bed, used the bathroom, showered separately, and then had a quiet breakfast. I was tempted to throw caution to the wind and forget about meeting others, and I think Candide would have agreed, but I was determined. We finished cleaning, she walked me to the door, and we hugged each other with tears in our eyes. "I think this is goodbye," she said. "No, I don't agree. Why don't we meet for dinner, say 2 weeks from Friday, just to check in on how things are going?" "Okay," she said, kissed me on the cheek, and led me out the door. The sound of the door closing sounded like a cell door, and I wasn't sure I hadn't made the worst mistake of my life. I spent the rest of the week questioning my sanity. On Friday, I decided to join some friends for dinner and drinks. We sat in a corner booth at the back of the restaurant. I was facing the door. We were just finishing dessert when I saw her come in. Candide was with a tall, handsome guy. Who am I kidding? Of course he was tall and handsome. I was torn about whether or not I should come over and say hello, but I decided that it wouldn't be in keeping with our breaking up. I was disappointed at how quickly she seemed to replace me. I guess you can call me a coward because I waited until she went to the toilet before throwing some cash on the table and quickly saying goodnight to my friends. I was angry at her for not waiting long to get back into the game, and I was even more angry at myself. It was something we both agreed to. One thing was for sure. I was going to have a date. I flatter myself that I'm a pretty good catch, and I had no problem getting a date for next Friday night. Her name was Cheryl Thompson. She worked as a secretary for one of my clients, and we had exchanged innocent flirtations in the past. She knew I was married, but she readily agreed when I made it clear that I was divorced. I always thought Cheryl was business hot, but I wasn't prepared for the vision that greeted me at her door, and I think my surprise was evident. "I think I'm pretty well prepared," she said. "That's putting it mildly. Do you look like you're ready to go?" "Yes, just let me put on my cloak." I helped her throw the cloak over her shoulders, and we set off. Dinner was the usual first date chatter, except for the talk about my divorce. She was shocked by Jane's actions. I decided to lay my cards on the table over coffee and dessert. "Cheryl, I don't want to deceive you. In the lead-up to my divorce, I got involved with a woman, and after my divorce, we got pretty serious. We were both concerned about how quickly we were moving and the risks of getting back into the relationship. and decided that we should date other people for a while. I don't want you to think that I'm just using you as a placeholder or something. I'm completely open to what might happen, wherever that may lead. There was a charming ring to her laugh. John, this is just our first date. I don't expect any commitment, but I appreciate your honesty. Like you said, let's just play it by ear and see where it goes. With this awkwardness over with, we went on a very pleasant date, which ended with a warm kiss on the lips and a date for the following Saturday. Meanwhile, I had a dinner date with Candide on Friday, and I had no idea how it was going to go. I took her hands, and she was as beautiful as always. We chatted casually on the way to the restaurant, but as soon as we gave our orders to the waiter, she became serious. You know, I saw you. I just raised my eyebrows. I was at dinner and saw you with your friends. I was going to come over and say hello, but when I came out of the toilet, you were no longer there. I was a little embarrassed. I know we agreed that we would date other people, but seeing you with another man so soon, well, I guess I was a little jealous. Stupid, I know, but John, you had no reason to be jealous. Stefan was an old friend of mine whom I hadn't seen for a long time, and when he called, I took advantage of our break to accept his invitation to dinner. Sorry if this upset you. No need to apologize. Any upset was in my own head. In fact, it inspired me to get off my ass and ask someone out. We had dinner last week. Now it was her turn to raise her eyebrows. Should I be jealous? She asked with a smile. Oh, I don't think so, although we have another date for tomorrow night. We both agree that there is no commitment, just two people getting together to have a good time. That's nice, she said with a wistful smile. You deserve to have a good time. We were saved from further awkward conversations by the arrival of our dinners, and the conversation turned to more pleasant topics. Do you want to go dancing? I asked, holding the car door for her. No, I think it would be better if you take me home. She drove home quietly, looking out the window. We walked up to her door, kissed, maybe with a little more fervor than we intended, and gently pushed away from each other. Please stay in touch, John. I will do so. Good night, Candide, I said, and quickly retreated to my car before trying to get her inside. My date with Cheryl went well, and our goodnight kiss was more heated, with some petting, but we still broke up before things went too far. Although I spoke with Candide every week or so, our paths never crossed. I don't know whether we subconsciously avoided each other, or whether it was just fate. I saw Cheryl a few more times, and we actually ended up in bed, and it was fun, but there was no spark there. As we lay in bed after our third night of sex, Cheryl dropped a bombshell on me. John, I think this should be the last time. What? I thought we were fine. Oh, that's right. Maybe even too good. Now your words make no sense. John, when we started, we said no commitment, and I said, I'm not looking for any commitment. I didn't have them and don't have them, but I'm developing feelings for you, and if we continue, I think we might go places I'm just not ready to go. I'd rather hurt you now before the feelings get too deep than later when it really hurts you. I hope this makes sense. In a strange way, this is so. I can't say it doesn't hurt, but I'll get through it. I got dressed, kissed her forehead, and headed to the door. Good night, Cheryl. Goodbye, John, she said with a sad smile, tears sparkling in her eyes. Closing the door, I contemplated my next move. My next step was a series of women. Some of them were one-night stands, some were mini-relationships, although none of them were serious. Finally, I realized what was missing in my life and picked up the phone. Hello? She said. Candide, it's me, John, I said, completely forgetting that she had a caller ID. Candide, I don't know how you are doing, but I don't worry about selections anymore. I had more rebounds than in pinballs, and I'm on the rise. If I can still be with you, I want to go home. There was silence on the other end of the line, and I was afraid that I had missed my chance. How soon can you come? Jane did not leave town in disgrace and lived a lonely life surrounded by her cats. She certainly wasn't looking for work in a Mexican brothel. While I wasn't really... I saw Cheryl a few more times, and we actually ended up in bed, and it was fun, but there was no spark there. As we lay in bed after our third night of sex, Cheryl dropped a bombshell on me. John, I think this should be the last time. What? I thought we were fine. Oh, that's right. Maybe even too good. Now, your words make no sense. John, when we started, we said no commitment. And I said, I'm not looking for any commitment. I didn't have them and don't have them. But I'm developing feelings for you, and if we continue, I think we might go places. I'm just not ready to go. I'd rather hurt you now before the feelings get too deep than later when it really hurts you. I hope this makes sense. In a strange way, this is so. I can't say it doesn't hurt, but I'll get through it. I got dressed, kissed her forehead, and headed to the door. Good night, Cheryl. Goodbye, John, she said with a sad smile, tears sparkling in her eyes. Closing the door, I contemplated my next move. My next step was a series of women. Some of them were one-night stands, some were mini-relationships, although none of them were serious. Finally, I realized what was missing in my life and picked up the phone. Hello? She said. Candide, it's me, John, I said, completely forgetting that she had a caller ID. Candide, I don't know how you are doing, but I don't worry about selections anymore. I had more rebounds than in pinballs, and I'm on the rise. If I can still be with you, I want to go home. There was silence on the other end of the line, and I was afraid that I had missed my chance. How soon can you come? Jane did not leave town in disgrace and lived a lonely life surrounded by her cats. She certainly wasn't looking for work in a Mexican brothel. While I wasn't really interested in knowing, mutual friends told me she was dating, although there didn't seem to be anyone she was seriously dating. Candide wanted to invite Jay to the wedding. Although I wasn't sure it was such a good idea, I didn't mind. But Jane refused, sending a nice gift. I was surprised when Candide struck up a casual friendship with Jane, meeting occasionally for coffee or shopping. It didn't bother me, although of course it was unusual. About 6 months after we got married, I returned home to find Candide dressed to go out. Oh, I thought, here we are again. Fortunately, my fears turned out to be unfounded. Go change, we're meeting Jane at Amelia's for dinner. Look, I know you two have gotten pretty friendly, but don't you think this is a little over the top? Don't worry, dear, there is a method to my madness. I knew I couldn't argue with her when she had any idea in her head, so I just shrugged and went to change. Jane was already waiting in place, and calling the situation awkward would be an understatement. Candide and Jane greeted each other with kisses on the cheek, as all women do, while I just stood there, feeling awkward. Neither of us seemed to know what to do. Then Jane spoke. John, good to see you. You look good. Thank you, Jane. You look good too. We were spared even more awkwardness by being shown to our table. Candide paused for a moment, saying something to the man behind the counter. What does all of this mean? I asked when she caught up with us. You don't have to worry about it, honey, she said. Now every husband knows that when his wife says nothing, it means something, and he should be concerned. But again, there was nothing I could do except play along and hope for the best. Jane sat to my right, and Candide opposite, and before we could order drinks, the owner came up with Stefan. Candide stood up, gave him a friendly hug, and seated him on my left, opposite Jane, and her insidious plan became obvious. While I was relieved that my worst fears had been unfounded, the evening did have the makings of a disaster. Luckily, Jane and Stefan seemed to get along. Conversation flowed smoothly throughout dinner, and by all accounts we were like 4 old friends. All too soon, it seemed it was time to leave. Stefan and I split the check, and while Candide and I were leaving, Jane and Stefan decided to continue the evening at the restaurant bar. Candide was so self-confident, but I couldn't be angry. While it may not last long, they're clearly off to a good start. We maintained cordial, if distant, relationships with Jane and Stefan. We rarely communicated as couples, although we often met in groups. Apparently they have a stable relationship. Jane no longer seems to need to spice it up. We wish them all the best. Candide and I couldn't be happier, though kicking the baby really wakes her up at night. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one.